Hi everyone, my name is Jesse, and first I'd like to thank Kathleen and Celeste for having me. It's actually really incredible being here because this was also the first room that I came in when I started interior design. So everything just like came full circle. I had like nostalgic feelings. I felt great coming here. It felt like coming home. So really quick, a bit about my journey, the rundown. I made like a little nice flow chart for you guys. I started at Brookdale Community College. When I graduated high school, I thought I wanted to do music. I've always been a really creative person. I thought I wanted to do music. I did music for a year, did not want to do music. It was not what I thought it was. And then I remember, okay, so like, what am I gonna do? And I thought about things that I've always loved, and HGTV was one thing that I always loved. So I was like, you know, I'm gonna check out the interior design program. So I came up here actually, and I walked past here and I looked through those windows and I saw all the desks and I was like, wait, this feels so weird. I feel like I'm supposed to be here. So I went home that day. I dropped my music program and immediately changed to interior design, and I haven't looked back. And like I said, this was the first room that I came in. My first class was also Intro to Interior Design, and I remember the first day, my first homework assignment was to create elevations of walls in my house. And I was like, what is an elevation? I was like, I don't even know what that is. So I was terrified, but in a good way. And it's important to stay terrified, because if you're not staying terrified, then you're not pushing yourself out of your boundaries. So that's a little bit of how I started with interior design. After I graduated from Brookdale, and while I was still at Brookdale, I worked for my first design firm, which was a residential design firm. It was called Holly Volpe Interior Design. She actually graduated from the program as well. And this was an incredible jumping off point for me. It was my first job in interior design. And with my first job, it was a smaller design firm, so I had a lot of responsibility. And when you have a lot of responsibility, it's also an incredible learning experience. So these were some things that I got to work on while I was there. FF&E, which stands for Furniture, Fixtures, and Equipment. Fabric selection, furniture sourcing, project management, and we also had a showroom. The showroom still exists. It's over in Colts Neck. And I did some showroom upkeep. I was definitely more so into the design office, so I was primarily working with clients to design their homes. This was one project that I actually got to work on, where I picked the fabric for the window treatments, and picked the chandelier, and picked the artwork, and the wall covering. And it's really incredible to look back on this and see where you are now and see your own journey. So from there, one thing that I really wanted to talk about was my experience transferring to another university. When I first came here, I had no intention of transferring to another university. I just wanted to do interior design, and I thought like I was gonna go in and get out, and that was gonna be it. But then I found out how much I loved it and how much I craved the knowledge to keep on going. So I went to Parsons, and terrified, because it's in New York City. That's number one. Number two, I went into it knowing it was an incredible university, and I had so many doubts in my own self. But then once I arrived, I was like, wait a minute, I feel like I know so much more than these other students, just because I was a transfer student and I had a different background from them. And Brookdale really gave me, I don't even like saying they gave me the foundation, because they gave me more than the foundation. Because I went in there knowing so much, and I felt not only comfortable, but I felt confident when I went in there. And for me, that was mind-blowing. And I transferred there with another student, and we graduated together. Her name's Melissa McCarthy. I don't know if anyone knows her. But she says the same thing. We sat in class, and we were like, wow, like, we have such a different perspective. And not only do we have a different perspective, but we feel, in certain aspects, so much more advanced. And of course, they were advanced in other aspects, such as different technologies, but that's just because that's what they knew. So while I was at Parsons School of Design, I obtained my BFA, Bachelor of Fine Arts. And one of the things that I loved about this university was the different classes that you can take, and how every class kind of, you can take an aspect of every class and infuse it into interior design. So of course I took my interior design studios, and I'll show you some projects that I did in those studios. But also I took some explorative art classes. Like I said, I've always been very creative. I've been really into art my entire life. So one class that I took was a body and mind class. And I was like, okay, this sounds like something that you wouldn't even typically see at a university. But it was really interesting because it was how your body and mind relates to nature, and then how those things relate to design. So it's really cool to be able to go into these different art classes and sort of pick what goes into design and what you can take out of it from design. I also took a performance in space class, which focused on performance art, but it also focused on stage design, which was something that I've always been really interested in, again, because it's just another avenue for us as interior designers to explore. Parsons focuses very heavily on sustainability, which, as everyone knows or should know, it's the future. We had to design sustainably. There's really no more questions asked. So that was really incredible to learn about sustainability and how we as designers really do have a footprint on this earth. And then of course involvement. So I'm a really huge believer that you should be involved in not only school, but you should be involved after you're done with school. I was the president of the interior design student organizations at Parsons. Myself and the other student who graduated from Brookdale, we actually brought a little bit of IDSA from Brookdale to Parsons. They didn't even have an interior design student organization yet. So Melissa and I were the founders of the interior design student organization. This is actually one of my projects that I did in my first semester at Parsons. It's called Capsule. This was in fall 2016. It was a transformative restaurant experience. So the point of this project was, how can we as designers kind of break out of walls and create something that goes beyond that? So this is essentially this little capsule piece. It's the size of a storage unit or a shipping container, and then it turns into a whole restaurant experience where you're able to compost items and grow your own ingredients and interact with one another.
Very cool.
Thank you. So this was in my fall semester. This was the spring 2017 semester. It was a hospice end-of-life care facility, and this is just the patient room. But again, this was something that I've never been exposed to, and it was a very interesting semester because you're dealing with something that in reality is so sad, but how do you take that and make it more comfortable for the patient? And that's what we focused on that semester. This was my fall 2017 project called Mind Map. It was a co-working space that focused on mental health and wellness. Again, never designed a co-working space. We as interior designers are always going to find things that we've never done, but that doesn't mean you stray away from it. That means you like run towards it and learn while you do it. So this was one of those things. I never really understood what a co-working space was. So this was a whole different experience, and then mental health and wellness has been something that I've always been super passionate about. So this is another thing when you're in school and when you're out of school, always take something that you're really passionate about, and if you could infuse that into a project that you do, that's incredible. And then this was my final thesis project, which actually the book's over there if you guys want to take a look after. This was called Sonder and Bazaar. It was a LGBTQ plus hub market and housing unit. It was 3 stories. The two top stories were micro housing units, which are essentially just very compact apartments. You find that a lot in New York City. And then the bottom floor was a market and hub. Think of, let me see, like Whole Foods meets a Target meets like you're walking down the street in Asbury on Cookman Avenue and you see all these like cool shops that you want to like explore. That was essentially what it was. And then just for fun, this was one of those experimental art classes that I took. This was that performance in space class. We did a performance art piece in Washington Square Park called Structure in Nature, which essentially was how do we build environments that that affect nature, and how do we build environments that uphold nature. And then moving to now, this is where I'm at now. The name of the firm that I work at is called Rose Ink Workshop. And I actually started there in summer 2017 as sort of an intern. And then as soon as I graduated in May of 2018, so it's been almost a year now, I went back there immediately. So again, some of the things that that me as a junior designer gets to work on. We primarily work in hospitality, so we work in hotels. Right now we're working on a wellness center in Union Square Park, which has been an incredible experience. It's kind of been my own little baby because I've been working so heavily in it. So some of the things that I work on for this project are construction documents, which I'm sure everyone's familiar with, floor plans, RCPs, elevations. And then I do a lot of project management and coordination. So I'm talking with architects all the time. I'm talking to purchasing agents. I'm talking to different manufacturers. And then on top of that, you're talking to the clients, and you're talking to the people on site. So when you're going on site to on-site projects, you kind of have to manage them too. And then we deal with visual culture. So we're also dealing with, we're planning on designing uniforms, which is really cool. So as interior designers, you don't realize that, some people don't realize that you get to explore so many different options when you're designing a space, including the people in the space. And then FF&E, of course, fabric, furnitures, light fixtures. When you're in this field of hospitality, you're doing a lot of custom, or at least we do a lot of custom. So you're designing light fixtures from scratch, which is so much fun. You're designing banquettes, you're designing bars, you're designing sofas. Everything comes from a sketch, and then it turns into a spec drawing or a design intent, and then it turns into production, and then you see it in real life, and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I designed that. This is the well. We were actually featured in New York Magazine, which was really, really cool. This is the meditation room. So it's not built yet, it's coming soon, 2019, summer 2019. This was one of the first projects that I worked on, called Hotel Triton. It's in San Francisco, California. And again, this was one of those things where everything was custom. So these headboards were custom designed. The pillows were custom designed. This minibar cabinet wasn't custom designed, but we refinished it. This bench was custom designed. So it's really cool to be able to, like I said, design every little aspect. And when you're working in something like hotels, where you're creating mass quantities of things, like we're working on another hotel on Wall Street, and I think there's 150 rooms. So when you have that much quantity of something, you really get to explore, and you really get to design things because people are able to produce it. That's the lobby. Right over there. This is actually really cool. This was a mural that they uncovered during the construction, and we had something else there originally, and we were like, that mural's so cool, why would anyone cover that up? And we kept it there. So that's another thing when you're working in projects like this, with buildings that are already built, which most are in New York City. or in this case, San Francisco, you find things in that building that instead of looking at them as challenges, you have to embrace them. And then this is, these are two very early renderings of the well, which will be open in summer 2019. This is the one that's in Union Square. It's on East 15th Street. This is, like I said, my baby. So I'm super excited because I really feel like I had such a huge part in designing this. And yeah, I'm really excited to see how it comes out. I go to on-site meetings all the time. Every Tuesday we have an on-site meeting that starts at 9 a.m. and like sometimes I leave out of there at like 6 p.m. But like it's fun. You have to love what you do if you're going to be on site for that many hours. So yeah, this is the wellness center. There's going to be treatment rooms. It's mostly like holistic health. So there's going to be treatment rooms with holistic doctors, and there's going to be consultation rooms, and there's a steam and sauna. It's going to be really exciting to see it come together. This is the restaurant in the background. You can't really see it. I can't show you too much. I'm trying to show you what I can, because like when you're in this industry, you don't want to like show too much because you don't want to like, you know, give people an idea of something and then it typically doesn't look like that. And that's that. Thank you.
Excellent
Thank
presentation.
You. Thank you.
I think the only thing I do have to just say, Jess, is that I thought I was the biggest cheerleader for the Brookdale program, but I think you might be in the running with me. It is just such an amazing place. The fact that you and I were in school together when you're so significantly older than me, clearly.
I am.
And we
You're
all
absolutely
just were
right.
part of this wonderful group that just interacted well, designed well together. It's just so exciting. So I'm so incredibly proud of you. And I say that
thank
because
you.
I know you personally, out of all of our
Thank you.
speakers. You've just come so far. You had such talent when you left here. And
Thank
you
you.
are just obviously, you're just in the right place. And I'm so proud of you. Thank you for
That's very
sharing it with
sweet.
us.
Thank you.
My question for you is, you have such beautiful creative designs. Where do you draw your inspiration from, number one? And number two, how do you stay abreast of trends and things that are happening around you without creating things that are boring or done before or feel not fresh?
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good question. So for myself personally, how do I gain inspiration? Living in New York City, you get so much inspiration. You could be walking down the street and you're like, wow, that's really cool, take a picture of it and then put your own spin on it. Very similarly to Rose Ink Workshop, where I work, our motto is art-directed spaces that make you smile. So the principal, the owner of the company, actually is an artist. She went to school for interior design, but she's first and foremost an artist. So all of our spaces are driven by art. So in a literal sense and a figurative sense, they're driven by art. So we work actually with a lot of artists, and we create custom art pieces with artists for these spaces. But even beyond that, we want you to walk into the space and just like smile. We want you to smile, and we want you to feel like the space is art. So that's answer to the first question. The second question, I think if you're true to yourself and you're true to your own design sensibility, while also infusing kind of what's going on in the current design market, then it'll never feel like outdated. It'll never feel like it's been done before. So I think that's stay true to yourself, and always make sure that, I know it's hard, but always try to infuse yourself into projects. It's really easy to lose yourself when you're designing projects and you're going back and forth with the client and they're like, I don't like this, and then you have to change it. But sometimes it's also good just like stand your ground and be like, I'm gonna keep myself in this project too.
Really cool designs.
Thank you.
Beautiful. I have a question. you do a lot of commercial, so could you tell us some of your favorite commercial vendors that you've worked with? Because you spoke to doing a lot of things custom, and so what's some of your favorite brands?
Oh, that's such a good question. So like I said, a lot of what we do is custom. So we work with a lot of mail workers. So a lot of our mail workers are actually out of Miami because Rose Ink Workshop originally was out of Miami. And then we sort of opened up offices in New York City. In regards to vendors that, honestly, we do use, and I probably shouldn't say this, but we do use like CB2, Crate and Barrel, West Elm, like everyone else. They have great products when we're not doing something custom. But one vendor that we actually do use a lot is called First Dibs. I don't know if anyone's familiar with First Dibs.
Yeah.
They have such cool stuff because it's like a giant like vintage shop online. So not only do we shop from them, but we also gain a lot of inspiration from them. So that's one vendor that we use a lot. And of course, fabric vendors, we use Cravat, we use Schumacher, all of them.
Okay. And then to follow up to the mill workers, what are some interesting like wall cladding materials that you've learned about, maybe that you didn't know when you were in school, but being in the industry now you've worked with? So
actually the Well is using a ton of plaster and plaster work. That's more of like a special finishes than a millworking piece, but plaster I think might be the new thing. Like I think it's coming back. A lot of people are using plaster, and you can do so many different things with it. You can create like really cool textured walls, or you can have it super. We're actually doing like a mixture, and we're doing a ceiling that's going to be super high shine Venetian plaster. And I feel like a lot of people think of plaster and they think like, oh, it's like, what is that, the 80s or?
Yeah, like I can't picture it, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, that's something, you know, the design field is always changing. So that's, I guess, going back to your question, like, how do you make plaster work where in like 20 years it doesn't look like, oh God, plaster?
Yeah.
It's just, you know, making sure that it works within the design and you're doing your own thing with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.